Now I'm talking about the fuel debris removal. In case of the Fukushima Daiichi, as I show you, debris is at the bottom of the vessel, and depth is 120 feet. And those, in this picture, due to the color, it is not clear, but this vessel should be filled with water because water is good sealed material for radiation. Means that the vessel should be repaired to avoid the water leakage. At this moment, the water is poured from the top of the vessel reactor, but the depth of the water here is only 20 inches. At that point, there is the damage of the vessel where the water leaks out. And that means the repairment in the building is very essential. But as I told you, that this building is highly contaminated, especially in Unit 2. And there is, up to now, no detailed plan how to work out in the plant, in the building. Sorry. This picture shows the annual radiation doses at 3 Mile Island. In case of the 3 Mile Island, the debris removal, fuel debris removal, has been started just 5 years after the accident because there were no spent fuel in the pool. The reason why is this unit has been commissioned just 4 months before the accident, and therefore the spent fuel pool was empty. Therefore, after 5 years, and also the reactor vessel was not damaged, and therefore it was easy to fill the water with fill the vessel with the water. Therefore, just within 5 years, fuel removal has been started. And in case of Fukushima, it is expected to start 10 years later from now. Means 2022 is the starting point of the fuel removal. During those period, fuel removal period, there are so high radiation exposure in comparison with the initial, just after the accident. In case of Fukushima, therefore, there is no doubt that there is the much more radiation exposure. As I introduced you, the accident is very much complicated and difficult than the 3 Mile Island. Therefore, we need we cannot avoid the radiation exposure, unfortunately. However, TEPCO projects the necessity of workers like this way. Year by year, they expect to less workers required, and never talk about the 10 years later. This shows that TEPCO works only for the short period, not 10 years, 20 years later. Now, I'm talking about our organization, Skilled Veteran Corps for Fukushima. We request or appeal that skilled veterans be allowed to work at Fukushima Daiichi to reduce radiation doses for younger workers. The reason why we request such is that the elder people, by the radiation exposure, the damage would take place at the DNA. But DNA is mostly damaged when the cell splits. At that time, DNA becomes loose and very easily damaged. But younger people or a baby has much more frequency of the cell splits, but elder doesn't have. Therefore, elder people has much less risk than younger. That is one of the important reasons why we can say skilled veterans be allowed. And secondly, even if my DNA would be damaged, the problem, say, the cancer would appear not next year, but 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years later. But elder people has much less life length. And for example, I may die by the other reason than cancer caused by radiation exposure. And in addition to that, we never have the child more anymore. And we have no chance to leave the damage to the next generation. Those three reasons that we are requesting such issue. Now, as you know, the earthquake and tsunami took place in March 11 last year, and getting the information that all of the power has out at the Fukushima Daiichi, and almost immediately we understood that the fuel must be damaged, and even though government didn't say anything. Therefore, I appealed such the request on April 10th. I have delivered my appeal to my friends and the many people which I have the relation. And within 1 month, I had the contact from TEPCO. Then it was the so-called golden time in Japan. It's a vacation season, but I have talked with the TEPCO's director. And 3 weeks later, we had a meeting with Mr. Hosono, who is presently minister in charge of Fukushima Daiichi, and together with TEPCO. And we had discussed our proposal, and TEPCO and Mr. Hosono expressed that they welcome us. And as a result of this meeting, we have dispatched our inspection team to Fukushima Daiichi. I was one of them, and I entered the building of the Unit 4, which you have seen at the beginning. And after the inspection, in August, we proposed some items to TEPCO and government. After that, we have almost no reply from them. In the diet, some questions have come to the Mr. Hosono, and he said that I welcome the proposal of the SVCF, and he is looking for some possibility to accept the SVCF member and instructing TEPCO something to do. Then I went to TEPCO and negotiated several times. And finally they said that TEPCO doesn't have the room to accept SVCF member at this moment. They never say that TEPCO doesn't need SVCF, but at this moment they have no room. And it has passed month by month, and nothing more. We have discussed internally what is the reason why, and they never refuse us, but never accept us. That something strange station was there. There must be several reasons why they cannot accept or they do not accept. Finally, we got the one conclusion. There are several items. If we discuss all of them, then it takes 1 hour or 2 hours. Therefore, I would say only the most important issue. That Fukushima Daiichi is presently a division of Tokyo Electric Corporation, TEPCO, a private company. And TEPCO makes some contracts with big companies. And then those prime contractors makes subcontract to smaller companies or subsidiary companies, and then they make the subcontractors again and again. It just to recruit the workers that they use such a multi-layered contracting system. This is very unique in Japan, which is already traditional, and not only in Fukushima Daiichi, but also all over Japan. Almost all of the heavy industries use such a system. It's a social or a business structure now in Japan. It must be very strange for you, the American people, but this is the almost traditional, already for Japan, traditional structure after Second World War. And therefore, TEPCO's workers, employees are working at the site, of course, but there are much less than other workers, only some tens. In total, 3,000 or more workers are at the site every day. And due to such a subcontracting system, there are 400 contractors involved in this work. Means that at the bottom there are less than 10 workers per company. Some hundreds of the companies are involved at the bottom. Therefore, TEPCO cannot control, manage those companies, and it is impossible to accept SVCF member to assign the job at the bottom. That it is out of scope of TEPCO. This is basic, very basic structure which makes them, TEPCO, to unable to accept us. Now, therefore, to break or to make the way to enable our proposal, we are proposing that the present structure is that the Fukushima Daiichi is one of the divisions of TEPCO. And this should be taken out from TEPCO and form the national project. because that the TEPCO is private company and profit-oriented company, which cannot deal with the such long-term, non-profitable project. This is the most important, independent from TEPCO. And it means independent from TEPCO's headquarters or management, but we don't say that the TEPCO's workers are not necessary. We need TEPCO's employees who are working at the site. They know the site very well and they are capable. Therefore, we need the TEPCO's employees, but not need the TEPCO's headquarters. That is most important issue. And we are proposing also employee worldwide expertise. I'll discuss a little bit detail later. And third is integrated project management. This means to break the multi-layered subcontracting system, enable the detailed integrated project management. And furthermore, international inspection team. I'd like to discuss a little the detail. First item, independent from TEPCO, must be already more clear. And due to such a private company, the project cannot be transparent. Many of the important information are not disclosed. And due to or depend on the TEPCO headquarters interest. TEPCO's most interest is to produce the power, to sell the power, not to clean up or settle the 3 Mile Island. Therefore, they hide the several information or make the information not easy to access. The project team shall employ the capacity, knowledge, experience from all over the world. As you knew already, that Fukushima Diiatchi accident is much more complicated than 3 Mile Islands and as well as than Chernobyl. In case of Chernobyl, the discharge of the radioactive materials are much more than 3 Mile Fukushima Diiatchi, but it's completely damaged, and the way to settle the unit was just to cover by the carbon plate was still cement concrete. But in case of Fukushima Diiatchi, there is the fuel debris remained in the vessel, and we have to continue the cooling by the water for 10, 20 years, and much more complicated. And at the bottom there is debris we should take out. Therefore, we have to employ or ask the experience in the 3 Mile Islands and Chernobyl to shorten the project as much as possible. And very important issue is that most of the nuclear power plant is handled by nuclear specialists and very much closed circle there are. But the cleanup or settlement of the accident at Fukushima Diiatchi requires much wider knowledge, experience than nuclear power only. Therefore, we have to employ the very wide range engineers and knowledge. And project members shall be from TEPCO, as I said, and Hitachi, Toshiba, and so and so, and also from Chernobyl, Three Mile Islands, the person who had the experience, and as well as Bechtel or Flower or TC, those are Japanese company. Those are the engineering, so-called engineering company who can manage such a huge size project. Operating company, that they are specialists to operate the existing plant, but such a work requires basically day by day the same job, to repeat the job, same job perfectly. But the cleanup or construction job requires day by day different job. Task is different day by day. Therefore, management system and accounting system or type of the people or interest by the working people should be very much different. And completely different computer system is also required. Therefore, TEPCO cannot deal with such a project management. Therefore, we need those Bechtel and so and so, who have the capability to manage the project. And based on those technology, we have to realize the integrated project management. And that is also important to manage the exposure, radiation exposure. I would say that we cannot avoid the radiation exposure. Of course, we have to make the effort to minimize the radiation exposure, but it is impossible to avoid the radiation exposure. Therefore, how to manage, how to allocate the workers at the most suitable working site is very, very important, taking into consideration ages, skills, and so and so. But under the condition of multi-layered subcontract system, it is impossible. The workers cannot be assigned at the most suitable place. Therefore, we need the integrated project management, restructuring multi-layered subcontract system. Then SVCF members would be able to accept it and assign at a suitable site. Inspection team consists of international members shall be formed. This would be very acceptable, I believe, because that the Fukushima Diiatchi is not a problem only for Japan. It is well known that the West Coast would or already had some influence, and if there were additional disaster, the West Coast must be contaminated or some influence there, and with the sea stream, you may have in the near future some problem. And furthermore, it takes 40 years, and within the 40 years, no one can guarantee nothing happen. Therefore, this project must be global matter, not only Japan, USA, but global matter, like us, Chernobyl. Therefore, we have to have the inspection team, international project team, the inspection team. This is our fourth proposal. Now, I'd like to ask you to work together with us or help us that spreading our full proposal or request within the USA or Europe or to your neighbor and ask your government to request Japanese government to move such a way. We, unfortunately, our government, Japanese government, doesn't have the intention to accept or to listen our proposal. Therefore, I would like to ask you to move or to move your government to push the Japanese government. Japanese government is unfortunately or fortunately, they are sensitive to the USA. And therefore, I would strongly ask you to spread our voice to your circle or your neighbors and further to move to work with the statesmen and let your government to move to Japanese government. Thank you very much.